Yeah, I welcome the people who actually joined for also today as a new kind of participant. So I actually want to introduce our first speaker, Tim Zhang, who is actually one of the premier blockchain expert in China and CTO of White Matrix. So he actually not only very kind of knowledgeable in blockchain, he's also a very funny speaker. I heard actually one time he used a dating as a metaphor or analogy to talk about blockchain and smart contract. So right now I actually hang over the team and then hope everybody enjoys his presentation.
Hi everyone. So thank you very much for Sam's introduction for myself. So I will just a brief preface. So I'm the CTO of White Matrix and also the builder of the Chain ID, which is the software or the platform I want to introduce to you guys today. So let me just share the start the slide sharing. Okay, so everybody can see my screen, right? Okay, so I will just get started. So today the topic is Chain ID, so which is a multi-blockchain cloud-based Dapps IDE. And I'm also very glad to share Chain ID, especially at this situation, which is the Meta Web3 Builder competition. And I hope you guys can have a try on it when building your projects. Okay. So today my presentation will divide into four parts. The first part is the overview of Chain ID, and the second part will be the functionalities. And the third part will be, so what are the services and the ecosystem we built and we provided around Chain ID. And the fourth part is the future plan. And of course, after all these introduction done, I will briefly show you guys a demo of Chain ID and how we use it to build a decentralized application. So the first part is the overview. So what is Chain ID? So it is actually a cloud-based interactive development environment. So that's the kind of full presentation of IDE for smart contracts and also decentralized apps. So which can be deployed onto multiple blockchains, including Ethereum, Definity, Conflux, Nervous, Flow, Apples, and other equivalent blockchains. So there are three kind of the most important philosophies or features we want to insist on Chain ID. The first is simple interfaces. We want our users to develop the Dapps very quickly, right, without too much confusion. And the second one is the multi-chain support. So we believe that there will be more and more public blockchains and more special designed blockchains for special scenarios. So it is important to have a multi-chain support for most of the Dapps developers. The third one is web-based and cloud native. So I believe that in the future, most of the desktop application will be eliminated, and people will get more and more used to browser-based application or cloud-native application. So for this application, you got people can just use any platform like mobile phone and without any pre-installation and environment setup. So this is the brief interface of Chain ID. So we want to make it as familiar as possible for most users. So if you guys are a developer, so it might look very similar to the IDEs you use it to VS Code or the intelligent WebStorm, something like that. All right. So as I mentioned so Chain ID is a cloud-based IDE that supports development for smart contracts, debugging for smart contracts, and also the development and testing environment for front end and the back end. And most important is the part is it is a multi-chain support. Currently, we supported the following blockchains. So I think if most of you guys may be aware of smart blockchains are divided into many categories, right? So like consortium chains and public chains. So for consortium chains, we support Ant blockchain, chain 33, and the Hyperledger Fabric. For public blockchain, we support most, like a majority blockchain, like Ethereum, Polygon, Flow, Definity, like the Aptos, right? So these are the most popular blockchains recently. All right, so as an ID, right? So it is always come to our mind that, our mind that, there are also other competitors in the market, right? So the first one is Remix, right? So it is the the most popular EVM ID, right? And it is backed by the Ethereum Foundation, right? And the second one we want to compare with, so we want to learn from, is the VS Code, right? It is not a blockchain ID, but it is the most popular desktop ID, and it's most popular free ID, right? So to compare with, compared to Remix, right? So it is very easy and simple to use. It is also browser-based, right? And also very, very simple interface. You can just one click to do the deployment and debugging. And also, it's also have very good feature set for Solidity development, right? But the downside for it is that, first of all, it's a EVM only ID. It's not a multi-chain or cross-chain ID. And also, because there's no backend, right? So there's no backend for Remix. It is a lightweight, like front-end only ID. So you cannot run any kind of complicated, like a node environment or NPM environment there. So which means that some toolset like Hardhat and Truffle, you need to rely on some plugin to mimic, to kind of simulate this in node environment in the browser. So which is not very easy to use. So for VS Code, obviously, it has the biggest user base, right? So a lot of useful plugin extension, including a lot of blockchain extension, like the Solidity grammar checker, Solidity extension. But the downside is that it is first of all, it's a desktop ID, right? So not very easy to use compared to the cloud native ID. You need to install it, right? And also you need to install a lot of like dependencies. For example, like npm, these things you need to install it after, before you kind of start your programming for the Dapps and the smart contract. And also it is a general purpose ID, so it requires a lot of like configuration to and also add a lot of plugins to make it very, very good for the Dapps development. So to mitigate, or maybe to mitigate these the downside of these two products, so that's how we design, or that's how we develop our chain ID. So want to make it, first of all, make it easy for most developers. So it is kind of like inherited the way from Remix. So we want to keep it simple, right? So that's why we build a web-based ID that allows most users to one-click deploy and one-click testing for a smart contract. And second one is we want to make it customized, specially customized for blockchain development. And we also, for different blockchain, like different blockchain environment and the use cases, we designed different plugins. That's how we can make a chain ID and multi-chain support ID. And third one is the ecosystem. So for example, like the VS Code, it's kind of, their use base is too large. So it's hard to maintain a very special blockchain ecosystem, right? But for chain ID, we focus on the blockchain community. So that's why we bring out many bootcamp and like the competition here to want to listen from our users and improve our features and functionalities. So the second part will be the chain ID's functionalities. So in this section, I will just briefly introduce the basic functionalities of Chain ID. So as you can see, these are the some of them are very commonly seen in most traditional IDs, and some of them are belongs only to blockchain development process. All right. So first is the file system. So we actually Chain ID provided a powerful backend that persists all these projects and files on our cloud. So which means that whenever you create a project, even though you don't need to log in, you can just log in as a guest. You can still like persist your projects and the files onto the cloud. The second one is the editor. So which is very similar to most traditional traditional desktop editor, but it's implemented in the browser. So you can easily split the tabs, and also it has this syntax highlighting. It also provides the autosave functionalities. And the third one is the preview. So we actually provided the preview for all these HTML, JS, JSX, and Markdown files. We'll also provide the preview for the smart contracts that will show the UML diagram in the future. The fourth part is the log console, so which will show the blockchain-related logs, and also this console will also be used as a placeholder for the interactive shell and sandbox. So in later showcase, I will just show how you use this this window to interact with the sandbox, which is a virtual environment for backend and also complicated NPM development. And also we have the compiler for most blockchain we've supported. So this one here, the image shows the compiler for Solidity, but for other blockchain like Flow, like the Aptos, we also provided similar functionalities. And this one is the multi-version compiler, and it will provide the contracting information, including the API and the bytecode. And also we provided the JavaScript virtual machine for Ethereum. So it is the same interface but implemented in JavaScript, which means that you can run a Ethereum virtual machine in the browser without actually interacting with the testnet, or you have to run a node locally, right? It's in memory EVM, and you don't need anything like the faucet or the actual like the token or coins to test the program. And the last one is the last one I want to mention is the deployment and interaction. So basically, there is once you finish your development, you can just one click to deploy the smart contract to the designated blockchain networks. And also you can just importing external deploy the contracts. For the interacting, so it will just after the importing or deployment, it will just show all these interactable API you can just invoke, and you can just try to test and view the output. So the plugin system is an advanced feature. I want to introduce that is Chain ID. Chain ID basically designed a public interface which is open source, and we also developed a bunch of plugins that is used to support different blockchain and different use cases. For example, so you can see here there's a Chain ID debugger, which performs the same functionalities as the EVM debugger, I think in Remix. So basically, you can just do the kind of step in, step out, and you'll see all these variables and the memory condition of the EVM. And also you can develop your own plugins for different blockchains. For example, for different blockchains wallet, we have our own wallet plugin. For I think for all these 13 blockchains we're supported, we develop a wallet plugin for each one. And we also provide a plugin called Solidity Flattener, which is quite useful for a large project. So basically, when you try to deploy your project into the, you try to verify your project in the either scan, right? So it's better you to flatten all your smart contracts into one big Solidity file, and then just copy paste it to these either scan, and then we can do this verification easily. Yeah, and for the open source plugin templates is available on Whitematrix GitHub, so you guys can. We are very welcome for the community to contribute, and actually there are multiple projects that already contribute some plugins there. All right, so that's the second part. So the third part will be the services and ecosystem. So in this chapter, so I will just introduce like besides the functionalities, I will just introduce so what we did for to bring to the developers in the service and ecosystem side. The first one is the template market. So we provide templates such as storage, ERC20, ERC721 voting system. These templates in our ChainID website, so for developers to easily start their development projects. We also provide some the NFT game tutorial, so which I will just showcase later. But what I will showcase is a slightly different version. But basically, you can follow up for these templates. You can just easily follow up the README step by step, and then you can just directly deploy your NFT game onto the testnet. Besides that, we also provide a Newcastle interactive tutorial, which integrated ChainID into this tutorial and bring the beginners a interactive learning experience, like how the Move languages is functioning. So as we know that, so ChainID recently supported Aptos, which is not an EVM or Ethereum, Solidity-based blockchain. So it's a Move-based blockchain, right? So and in our plan, we are going to support more interactive provide more interactive tutorials in the future. We also have our forum for discussion and weekly online seminar, and also we are welcome to any application ideas. And also we bring our developer activities like offline activities, online classes, and also like bootcamp hackathons. I think in the past few years, we actually we held like over 100 different activities. And also for the ecosystem, we have our, as we mentioned, we have our forum and the community, right? So you guys can join ChainID's community in our through Telegram and Discord. And also we have our public blockchain partners, and also our social media will also be accessible from our website. And we are, besides all these kind of like community-driven services, we also provide a supporting service and solutions, which is more like consulting-based. So we have like two different type of consulting solutions. So first one is a chain-based. So it actually provide a manager Dapps, a front-end and back-end hosting solution. And the second one is ChainSync, so which is basically a managed data synchronization and enhancement service for special designer for your app and the data. And these are the kind of like the product built with ChainID. So the first one is the Riverman, so which is a very interesting 3D kind of like a jigsaw-based NFT, and I think that it was the first dynamic NFT in the world. And the second one is the mirror. So they also they are actually fusion the AI with NFT in their project. And third one is a matrix world. This is kind of a project, a multi-chain NFT project, a metaverse project. They use the developer team use ChainID to develop the smart contract, the NFT smart contract for from Ethereum and also Flow. So it is very interesting that a metaverse project can just do a multi-chain NFT. The fourth one is the Fanta Bear, so which is I think which topped the OpenSea in this year's January, and it is a very interesting kind of like a bear themed NFT. The fifth one is Dapps, and you guys, this is also a very hot and trending NFT collection on OpenSea. You guys can take a look. All right. So the fourth part will be our future plan on ChainID. There are basically three major directions we want to focus on. The first one is the serverless, so which is also a major direction for like cloud computing, right? So we actually already launched our serverless sandbox last year for developers to run their local nodes, test, and also for developers to test and run their Dapps. And the second direction is basically want to do more connection and also integrating with other platform and apps, right? So basically, this is also a popular trend in like Web2 or cloud computing. And ChainID also want to play a role for developers to easily connect their products to, for example, the multiple blockchains, also the hosting solutions, and also the storage, decentralized storage solutions, right? So this is also in the plan. And the third part is we want to go beyond IDE. We want to build a ChainID, make ChainID a collection of services that is useful for developers. So basically, we want to make ChainID a development platform for Web3. So just going a little bit deeper on each direction. So the first one is serverless. So we already have our sandbox, which is a virtual environment that has a on-demand backend or on-demand like container behind. So right now it's totally free. You guys can go ahead and try to create a sandbox and then run the backend. It can run the backend. Can run the like React-based, React or Vue-based front end, and then also run the useful node tooling like the Hardhat and Truffle, right? So, and we are also building a lot of useful like sandbox image, including the Hardhat CLI, Truffle CLI, NFT toolbox, and also the blockchain node. So you can also run a local blockchain node on that environment, even though it will be very, very minimal, very small. You cannot like hold the it's impossible for you to run a kind of a full node, but you can definitely run a development local node for your blockchain dev testing. And the second part is the ChainID connection or integration projects. So there are three different directions. The first is we want to integrate with VS Code, right? So VS Code is still the biggest kind of IDE in the world, and we want to have first of all, we want to make our plugin system compatible with VS Code's extension system. So which means that all these VS Code extension can be directly imported into ChainID. And also we will also write our own plugin or extension on the VS Code platform, and you guys so that the users can directly import the projects they write in VS Code into ChainID. The second one is the front end and back end hosting integration. So we are going to integrate things like the Cloudflare and Netlify, Alibaba Cloud, right, and IPFS Fleek. So IPS and Fleek. So which makes a one-stop solution for developers to start their decentralized application. And the third one will be the NFT toolbox. So that includes the market integration, metadata backend, solution, contract template, and also the persistent storage and the CDN. So this will be a future, I think the future architecture of ChainID development platform that includes it can interact with blockchain nodes, front-end CDN storage, back-end storage, and also DevOps and analytics. So developer will log into ChainID and then go through this workflow below, right? From templating to development, and then testing, deploy, DevOps, and incubate. All these steps are on the ChainID platform without going to other places. So you get basically the ideal situation is all your development activities can happen in ChainID, including the development, testing, and DevOps and maintenance. All right. So in the last 3 minutes, I'll just showcase how we're going to use ChainID to develop a full stack NFT project. So this will be so basically the first, we are going to create a project from the ChainID website. And then we can just directly go to, so I would recommend use BNB chain or Polygon because it's easier to get the test coins, right? And then we just choose the ESC NFT POC template to start with, and then we just follow all these instructions on the README. The first step is create an image, right? So we just choose npm hardhat. And then it will just start a backend sandbox, right? It's connecting to the backend, and then you can see this interactive shell. So shell, which you can just interact or like send a command to the backend sandbox. Then we just start cloning all these cloning the projects from GitHub. So after downloading from GitHub, then we change directory to Planet, and then we start the installation. So in the actual demo, it will take a very long time, but in the video, we just cut all these waiting time, right? And then after installation, we'll get on the file explorer. You can see all these files are synchronized, right? And then we just put the private ESC testnet account key. So this one, that's why we choose BSC, because it's easier for you to get all these test token. But in our, you can definitely run on Ethereum testnet. Please make sure that this private key is only used for testing purposes. Okay, so these are the only setup or the confirmation you need to do. And then we change the example, secret example to secret.json. Then after that, we will run the test command to make sure all these smart contracts and the contents are good. Okay, so test is done, and all these tests are passing. So basically, we passed the two tests on the deployment, two tests on the buying functionalities, and then we started the deployment to the testnet. So after the deployment to a testnet, which means that the smart contract is already deployed, but we still need to run the actual application. Then we started the young start web app. So you can see that the front-end folder, in the front-end folder, it contains all the source code of a React-based app, right? And then this command is actually runs the local React application in the sandbox. And the next thing we need to do is make the sandbox visible from the public internet. Then we need to add the port forwarding setting there. We are forwarding the 3000 port to the public internet. So this is a Dapp we built, and then so the functionality is you would just mint a planet NFT, and the front end will just randomize an image for your NFT, right? And after minting, you will see the NFT appears in your either your MetaMask wallet, or if you are using like Polygon or like Ethereum testnet, then you can also see the NFT on the marketplace like OpenSea. All right, so this is the demo showcase of how to use Chain to build a NFT Dapp. Definitely, you can have a try on this from this this link here. All right. Okay, that's all for today's presentation, and thank you very much for your listening. So we are looking forward to. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So did the audience have any question for Tim? Yeah. Oh, we have the first question actually we have is, so what are the common mistakes developers usually make when they developing like the kind of dev applications?
Yeah, this is actually a very good question. So the common mistake we usually see recently or through the development process, we actually in developing our own Dapp. So we found that the common mistake is the lack of test cases, because developing a Dapp is very different from developing a traditional like Web2 application. That is, the smart contract, when a smart contract is deployed to the testnet, you cannot change it. You can only redeploy it to fix your bug. So it is very important to write a bunch of tons of test cases to make sure your functionality is good to go. And then even for more strict testing purposes, some team will also to find a kind of audit team or review team to review your smart contract implementation before actual launching. So I think the most common mistake is lack for test cases.
So is that community that people can go for ask for other people for kind of a peer review? Because I think a lot of Web3 developers are doing it by themselves, right?
Yeah, so there are a lot of developer communities. So I think the biggest developer community we usually go to for different blockchain, they are different. For Ethereum, right? So a lot of people will go to the Open Zeppelin. There are a lot of people willing to help. Definitely, Chain ID developer community is also open for any questions and the bug fix or issue you experience doing developer. Yeah.
So Chain ID is always do so much for the community, right? So the next question is, so usually when developer develop a blockchain application, right, they always confuse which blockchain they should use, and what ecosystem is better. So what is your recommendation?
My recommendation will be so before you actually start development, try to learn from the very basics. So for example, you better to understand how blockchain works and how the kind of a decentralized network works, right? Because before choosing an ecosystem or before choosing a blockchain, these blockchains are very similar, right? So they are all based on the similar underlying infrastructure. So my recommendation will be learn the blockchain learn the blockchain kind of like basics first. And after that is done, so I would recommend a larger kind of like a larger blockchain for users to start, because there are a lot of kind of it has larger community. It has a lot of like examples online. So I would say maybe Ethereum would be the first choice. But it's not. But it all depends on like you have to learn the blockchain basics first. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so is there any emerging technology actually we should learn besides a really simple front end and smart contract application? What are the actual future people expecting right now?
Yeah. So actually, this is a very good question. So we see that from the very beginning, right? So blockchain and also smart contract only applies to like economy or like finance related area. But nowadays, it actually the use case and scenarios are getting more and more broad, right? So we see the NFT, which is related to the arts, right? Arts, and we see kind of a metaverse, which is related to the game and also the VR and XR. So I will recommend that to learn more technologies about the areas that that actually kind of that actually have a very good interaction with blockchain technology, which I think right now the emerging one is the metaverse. So because there are a lot of things we can learn, right? Metaverse, 3D, VR, AR, XR, right? So a lot of fun technologies that's actually have very good synergy with blockchain technologies. So yeah, so I think metaverse will be the area to go.
So it seems a lot of as we talk about metaverse, right? There's a lot of like technology involved. Do you have any recommendation on how people should build a team? You know, just like for a team, you definitely need one specific front-end person, one smart contract developer, and then for metaverse, you actually need a 3D engineer, like etc. Right? So usually, how a team should like organize it, then they can really build a good kind of not a commercialized product, but MVP ready products.
Oh yeah, so definitely, I think right now, especially in Web3, so people need to be versatile, right? So for maybe in the last decade, right? So we need specialized kind of people for kind of for certain areas, but right now it's no longer true. So if you only want to build a very quick MVP, you can just learn it yourself. There are a lot of like materials, starter kits, and also like the templates available online, especially for metaverse. That's why I recommend the metaverse for user to start with. So if you go to like the Unity or the Unreal communities, there are a lot of kit, right? You can just purchase, and then it already has kind of like the structure of the code and model. All this is building. You just need to add some part of like the smart contract or these Web3 component there, and then you get it. You get an MVP, right? So I would recommend as a starter team, hire versatile people and build an MVP, and then use the MVP to get more kind of investment and something like that, and then expand the team. Yeah.
So do you have some kind of personal experience you can share, just like at the beginning, like before you become expert in blockchain? How did it start? You just maybe a student, you know, in university. What is the story? Is there any interesting experience you can share?
Yeah, this is very actually it is very interesting that I get into blockchain development world. So because when I was a university student, so my major wasn't blockchain, right? So I actually majored in AI, but I really like games, right? So the chance I met blockchain that I think it was back in 2017. So there are a lot of kind of we call a so-called blockchain game at that time, right? So basically, you can just purchase a asset or a character on chain, and then you start fighting, and all these kind of fighting records is permanently persisted on the blockchain, and it's always there, right? So it was very fascinating to me because I played a lot of games, right? But the record just gone once the service provider is exited the industry. So from that time, I built my first Dapp, which is a kind of a Pokemon-like fighting game. And that actually introduced me to the blockchain world. And then I just started learning blockchain basics, smart contracts, 3D, and metaverse, and all these things. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much, Tim. Thank you for your share. And then I think everyone should actually start using Chain IDE to develop their first blockchain application.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. So right now, I think I'm not sure if my next speaker actually is joining right now, but actually, so let me actually reinforce a little bit about our hackathons. Actually, as an audience participant, what you can get. First of all, because Alibaba is a global company, they really want to promote Web3 kind of ecosystem in the region. That's why they spend a lot of resources to organize this hackathon, and they will have more and more events to come in the future. But as a kind of developer, right, why you want to join this ecosystem? And Alibaba will do all the, we actually put resources to create a lot of digital technical workshop. This actually all the talk at the first issue, kind of an addition that will help. And then in the future, there will be a lot developer resources for everybody too. So right now, I actually see our next speaker Diane. She actually is a wonderful person, a very, very young person. And but we really impressive background in terms of blockchain. So I want to introduce you to Isabella. He's the head of ecosystem of growth of Router Protocol. And this is a kind of cross blockchain messaging layer, actually backed by a lot of really interesting VCs, just like Woodstock Fund, Coinbase Venture, and CubeSpeed. She is actually, she's in her early 20s, just like I think all the audience here, but she accomplished so much. She actually, as I know, I may be wrong, she actually don't have any formal education, and then really from Philippines and earn herself way up from the bottom to the top in the ecosystem. And so she actually got selected by Entrepreneur Middle East publisher this year to be kind of one of the leader in one of the 4 key areas need to focus on to grow a blockchain awareness population. So I just don't want to say too much because she has so much accomplishment already. So I actually give her the mic and then she can start presenting her presentation. Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Sam, Cindy, and everybody else on this call. Today, we're going to talk about secure cross-chain communication. And the last time that we shared this topic was actually in DevCon Bogota. And I'm happy to share this with all of you in Turkey, Africa, Middle East, and some of you who are in Asia today. I will be joined by Shiva. We will be answering questions after the whole, maybe I would say 15 minutes. We will discuss about why bridges are important and a short introduction of router protocol. Now, why are we interested in bridges? I learned about the Bitcoin white paper in 2010 because I was playing a lot of computer games. But from that year until 2022, I've seen so much different blockchains come about. And this was an interesting topic for me personally, interoperability, because you cannot have true decentralization after without being able to solve the problem of interoperability. Now, we're going to quickly jump on why it's attractive, why bridges are attractive to both Web 2 and Web 3 developers. So you're seeing on your screen some photos of us here in Dubai with both Web 2 and Web 3 developers. And we are actually situated here in the UAE. We have a hacker house here. The whole router protocol team comes here. And we like to have fun. We like to go camping. And yeah, I'm very honored to speak on behalf of the team because I love the team very much. It's actually well known on Twitter to be one of the most ethical team in crypto. And we're going to raise the question of why should we all be interested in bridges? Now you will see on your screen the value that has been raised in the past when it comes to look at this, Nomad, $22 million. So we have Layer Zero here as well. But at the same time, there were hacks such
Isabella,
as...
can you adjust your screen a little bit so people can see the slide? I think your picture blocking it.
There we go. There we go. Layer Zero was able to raise $135 million. And the Ronin bridge was hacked with $600 million. For those of you who are not made aware, Ronin bridge is the one that is being used to facilitate the game that is popular in the Philippines called Axie Infinity. And this is something that has to be discussed more often. And I'm glad to be able to bring these brands up here today so that you guys can all do your own research. But let's pay close attention to the amount of money involved. Now, before we talk about bridging and cross-chain communication, let's talk about the basics first of what a blockchain is. Basically, a blockchain is just a ledger which stores data and transactions. It has value as long as you can move them. If it has value, it has a price. And you can have that exchange, which gives itself a valuation and an entire market cap. At the time of creating these slides, it was about $1 trillion US. But that value is across different chains, which means the value is separated. And that is why cross-chain swaps or bridges are important. Now, think of it as blockchains are an island of value. If you can't move value and assets across multiple chains, you can't move the value between them at all. It's like traveling from Asia to the Middle East, and you can't use your money over here. Even though there's a restaurant that might be willing to take your currency, but you don't have dirham with you, you just have Hong Kong dollars. You won't be able to move about frequently. That's why when we travel, we have ATM, banks, and credit cards in between for us to be able to move value from one country to another. As an example, that's exactly what CrossChain does. The movement of assets of value from one blockchain to another, that's called bridging. And exchanging a token on one blockchain for a different token on another chain, that's a swap. And the fragmentation of that value, even the users of the application itself, causes a lot of friction. As an example, you might have Solana with you, but you want to use Ethereum. To do that right now, you have to go to a centralized exchange or a decentralized exchange like Coinbase to sell your Solana to USDT and then buy Ethereum and then bridge that back to the app itself. It's like you're on vacation, traveling with your family, taking a lot of photos, eating at a restaurant, but then you have to find a bank that is physically open at that time instead of just using a credit card without friction. DeFi or decentralized finance is going to be big. Assume that with me. And if that's true, we're all going to replace TradFi one day. If that happens, cross-chain communication will be a critical infrastructure. Today, in order to facilitate these, imagine you're moving proprietary blockchains. Let's make an example of Solana, and you have an SLP standard, but you have the Binance Smart Chain also with its own BEP20 standard. How do you do that with less friction when you have two different standards there? The second example there is transferring assets between what you would call layer twos, let's say from Arbitrum to Optimism. If you want to do that right now, imagine having to take Arbitrum, put it back to Ethereum, wait 7 days so you can move it back to Optimism. There's a lot of friction to be reduced with cross-chain swaps. Now, as an architecture, what that looks like whenever you transfer information, you would have been able to do assets and contract calls from one chain to another. And how that looks like is you have a node that monitors the source chain on the original chain. That will be the validator. The validator then transmits information from source to destination chain. And in between that, there's a lot of checks happening. One check would be the required consensus among validators, and the second being the signature. Now, the validator on the destination chain would verify the signature and issue an IOU, typically. Now, there's another way to do it. It's called through a liquidity pool. Automated market makers would do this process. Now, there are different types of bridging mechanisms. One of it would be the proof of authority bridge. What that means is it's a small set of actors that are listening to events on the source chain, validates them, and then relays it to the destination chain. Proof of authority helps with integrity by providing, number one, an encouraging incentivization model, and number two, a slashing mechanism for malicious actors, which means they can no longer participate in validating transactions. In most extreme scenarios, a slash validators may lose their entire stake in the network. But the pros there would be few validators means it's easily done, it happens fast, and you have low latency. The negative side of that, you introduce trust, which means a collusion is a possibility. Now, when it comes to proof of stake bridges, instead of one node, you're giving it to one person with the most number of token balances. And this is, I would say, one of the most popular bridging mechanisms, but still less understood because personally, to me, I'm very sad that it's more akin to a centralized model than a decentralized one for now. So how it works is it's similar to a proof of authority bridge node, but the only difference is it has a large amount of token balance with one person owning it or multiple people, which executes, verifies, and signs the transactions. So the cons to that is the security depends on the price of the token. Now, when it comes to light clients, the example would be the Rainbow Bridge. Number one, a smart contract with a light client functionality. For example, that functionality is deployed on Near protocol, and then the smart contract with Near protocol like functionality will be deployed on Ethereum. So how that works is the verification is done on both chains, calculating Merkle roots from Merkle tree, and then verifying that it matches the header. So basically, you can all just use the keywords here and do your own research. I encourage that. But basically, when it comes to like clients, you don't need a validator besides the miner for both the chains itself. That would mean it has a high implementation cost because the smart contract development has to hold both the like clients on both chains. Now, there's another way to bridge this one as well. So it's called ultralight nodes with Oracle bridge adapters. It does not keep track of headers. It cannot compute transaction proof. It depends on the external actor. And the oracles there use to relay block headers and relayers to forward proofs. The cons there is the assumption in oracles and relayers that it won't collude. You're hopeful that that will happen. So actually, right now, we have a few minutes more to take some questions because we actually have Shivam Agrawal of Router Protocol with us today. But before that, I can give you an idea of what we do at Router. Basically, we are now integrated with more than 12 Ethereum virtual machine compatible chains, such as Aurora, Optimism, Arbitrum, Phantom, AVAX, and everything else out there. There's a lot, so just go on our Twitter and check it out. But basically, we have a widget. What that means is it's like an iframe that you can integrate into the website and perform the cross-chain transaction right then and there. So users don't have to leave that website anymore, whether it's a gamified game, an NFT marketplace, or any other decentralized app. You can integrate our widget. Second thing is we have an API, which will help you perform interoperability as well. The third thing is we have our software development kit, which also could be compatible with JavaScript. So yeah, I would like to invite Shivam to the call to answer a few questions, but otherwise we'll just go ahead and do our demo.
Hey, hello guys, this is Shivam, and I'm from the developer team of Router Protocol. And if you have any questions on Crosstalk, I'm here to help you. And then we can have a demo on Crosstalk also.
I think we can start the protocol demo first.
Okay. Yeah, I'll share the screen once. I think screen sharing is disabled here. Can you please enable it?
I think Isabella just need to stop sharing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So is my screen visible to all of you?
Yes.
Great. 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 So first, let me give you a little context about what Crosstalk is. So router crosstalk is a framework that enables you to take your contracts cross-chain. So you can, maybe you have a contract on chain A as well as on the chain B, and you want to send some instructions from chain A to chain B. So you want to send a greeting from chain A to chain B. Then you can interact with the contract on the first chain, and a bridge will relay that instruction to the other chain, and that will be executed by our bridge. So in between, we take some fees for the bridging services, obviously. So I'll share the official documentation link also. So dev.router protocol, you can find all the related documentation at dev.routerprotocol.com. Also, we have some sample contracts, and we have created a repo that anyone can try out the router crosstalk. So I'll share this link also with Isabella, and she can share with all of you. Okay, now let's start with the demo, how we can integrate the router crosstalk library. So integrating router crosstalk library is very easy actually. We just need to create some functions and write some logic as to what will happen when someone sends a cross-chain request to the other chain. So, okay, we all are familiar with the hard hat greeter contract already, I think, because hard hat gives it by default. So we'll try to integrate the router crosstalk framework into the hard hat greeter contract. All right. So first here you can see I have imported the router crosstalk library into my contract, as well as I have inherited it here with the contract, right? Now, as I have inherited it, I have to add some functions, as well as I have to handle some logic as to what will happen when a cross-chain request is sent or received to this contract. All right. So here we have three functions that we always need to set, always need to have. We can just copy paste these functions. I'll walk you through what each function is. So first is the set linker. So whenever you want to create cross-chain contracts, you have to deploy those contracts on both chain, as well as link those contracts so that your contract knows that this is my counterpart on the other chain, right? So linker is an admin address that has the ability to map the contract with the contracts on the other chain. All right. So you will be passing the address of your admin into this set linker function, and that admin will be able to link your contracts to the with the contracts on the other chain. Then there is a set fee token function. So what this does is, so we have some defined list of fee tokens that you can check on the dev.routerprotocol.com. So here I think we have some addresses for fees that we accept for router crosstalk. Okay. So yeah, supported fee tokens for crosstalk. So for each chain, you have some fee tokens defined that we support. So you can pass any of these addresses as a fee token you want to give. All right. So this is for the fees that we take to provide you the bridging services. Then the third one is approved fees. So what happens is you do not pay the fees directly. What happens is that you send the fee tokens to your contract, and the fee will be deducted from your contract itself. So our bridge will deduct the fees from your contract itself, right? So from your contract, you need to approve the bridge so that it can deduct fees, and that is why you need to create this function. All right. So I think these three functions are clear, and you just need to copy paste these functions. You do not need to create any custom logic in this. In any contract that you are willing to integrate crosstalk, you just have to add these three functions. Okay. Now moving on. So this is the function you want to call when you want to create a cross-chain request. So in our case, we have called it the set greeting cross-chain. So what happens here? You pass the destination chain ID. So this chain ID is not the actual chain ID of the destination chain, but the router defined chain ID. So we have a list of chain IDs, like for Polygon, we have the chain ID 1. For BSc, it's 2, and you can find the list in the official documentation itself. Also, here you pass the greeting that you want to pass. So here greeting means the data that you want to pass. In our case, we just want to pass the greeting, but you can pass whatever data you would like to pass. That this is the data that will be sent to the other chain, right? Then the third one is cross-chain gas limit, and fourth one is cross-chain gas price. So we also provide the capability for a developer to, fix what amount of gas limit as well as gas price the developer is willing to pay when the transaction is being executed on the destination chain. But beware, if you pass, lesser gas price then that is required, then the transaction will be stuck on the bridge and you'll need to replay the transaction. We also have a replay functionality. So I'll walk you through that also later. But yeah, so this is the cross-chain gas limit and the gas price you need to pass that you want a bridge to execute with, right, on the destination chain. Okay. Now, what we are doing here is we are just creating the selector to the function that we want to be called on the destination chain. So this function will be there on the destination chain. All right. This set greeting function will be there in the destination chain. And you need to just call this router send function with the data and the selector, as well as these 3 defined parameters that you pass to the function. And the cross-chain request is created and sent to our bridge, just like this. Then you need to create a function to replay. Okay, so just like I told you, you want to pass you have to pass the cross-chain gas limit and gas price. And if you pass a lesser gas limit or a lesser gas price than is required, then your transaction will fail on the bridge and it will not be executed on the destination chain. So you need to replay that transaction with the same nonce. So here what we will do is we'll just take the new gas limit and gas price from you, and we'll just try to execute the same transaction again using our bridge. So you have to pass an updated gas limit and gas price so that your transaction is executed. So this is the replay functionality. Then here comes the juicy part. This is the part where you handle your cross-chain requests. What happens is, so with the set greeting cross-chain, you call a router send function, and this relays your call to the destination chain. Now here, the router sync handler is the function that handles your cross-chain request that is received from another chain. So what I'm doing here is actually, so it receives the selector that you passed in the router send function. So here you created a selector to the function set greeting that should be called on the destination chain, and you pass some data, right? That data had the greeting that you passed here. All right. So this was the greeting that you wanted to be relayed on the destination chain. Okay. So here you will receive that selector and the data on the destination side. Okay. So what it will do is it will just check if the selector is the same as you passed, or if you have multiple functions that you want to call cross-chain, then you can check if it is the selector of this function then and decode this data in this way. All right. So if you have 2 functions, one is set greeting where you are just sending the greeting, and there is another function where you are also sending the number, right? You can check here that if this is the selector for this function, then I'll be just decoding the greeting from this data because that is what is received from there, right? And similarly, if this is not that function, then we'll be decoding it in a different way. All right. So we knew that the data contained a string, and that was the greeting. So we decoded it here using the API decode. And then we just called this function. So this function actually exists here only in this contract itself. So you can see the set greeting function. And this was the selector. The set greeting was the selector that we passed with the router send, you can see, right? So when we called the set greeting cross-chain, we wanted this function to be called on the destination chain. That is why we passed the function selector here, right? We passed the greeting also that we received in the router sync handler here, as well as the data, right? So we just called this function, and what happens is, so you can see we have a is self modifier here. That seems strange, right? So I'll tell you what is self modifier is. So it's is self modifier is a modifier that tells that only this contract itself can call this function. So no other wallet or anything can call this function other than this contract itself. So it is just a security measure so that no other person can call this function, right? So here you handle what happens when this message is received from the destination chain, and then this function is called, right? So when you send the when you send the request, this router sync handler executes on the destination chain, and it calls the function selector you passed from the source chain, right? So such function selector you passed was source set greeting, right? Then you have a recover fee token. This is not actually what required with crosstalk. This just I created because I wanted to test, and if something went wrong, I could just recover my fee tokens. So this is not something that is required for router crosstalk. So that is it. Actually, for router crosstalk integration, you just need to copy these three functions, paste it in your contract. You have to handle two things. You have to handle how you are sending the request to the other chain. You have to handle what you need to do when a request is received. So while sending, you are sending with this function, the set greeting cross-chain function. So this creates the request, and when you receive the call, then this router sync handler is called, right? So you need to handle the logic of receiving cross-chain transaction here. That's it. Now, if you do not have any questions, I'll move to the deployment part. And if you have any, you can ask me.
I think go ahead to do the deployment part real quick.
Okay. Okay, right. So this contract needs to be deployed on all the chains you need. You want to create this contract on. So if you want that, I want to pass my request from Polygon to BSC, then you need to deploy these contracts on Polygon as well as BSC, right? So here we have created some tasks. What these do are, okay, so we have a deploy task. What it does is, we'll pass the network we want to deploy to, and will deploy this contract, as well as it can set the linker, the fee token, and the approved fees. But where does this get the linker address, the fee token address? So we have created a deployments file where we write the addresses of the linker, the handler, and the fee token according to the chain. This is not something you have to do. You can do it manually also, but this is the way I prefer because it automates things, right? You just need to, set the addresses you want. So this is the address of my admin. This is the linker address. This is the address of route token on Polygon. I want to set route token as fee tokens because you get a discount of almost 50% on the US dollar fees if you use route. Then this is the handler. So the handler address is handler is basically a contract that handles your cross-chain request, right? So the handler addresses are also given in the official documentation. So you have to copy these things here. All right, and then you just need to call the deploy task. It will deploy your contract. It will set the linker. It will set the fee token, as well as it will approve the fees, as well as it will set your greeter address here in this file automatically. All right, so you get your addresses of the cross-chain deployments here. So when you have deployed to all the chains you wanted to, then you need to map these contracts. So you remember when I told you about linker, that the linker address has the capability to map the contracts on different chains, right? So here the linker will go to the generic handler, the handler contract actually, and they will try to map these contracts on different chains, right? So okay, so we also have a map contracts task, obviously, to automate this. So what you need to pass here is, so maybe you have deployed your contracts on Polygon and BSC, right? So you all know that BSC's chain ID is 250. No, not 250, sorry. That is 56. And the router specific chain ID for BSC is 2. So we have defined the chain ID of BSC to be 2 at router. We use that. So you just need to call this task, the map contracts on Polygon to all other chains that you need to map, right? So if you have 4 chains and you want to start mapping from Polygon, so you have to map that Polygon chain with all the other 3 chains. Then you go to the second chain, you map that chain with Polygon and the other 2 chains. And in this way, for each contract, you have to map with all the other counterparts on different chains, right? Okay. So what you need to pass here? So first is the chain ID. So this is the router specific chain ID, right? So if you are mapping polygon to BSC, then you need to pass this as one, this as 2, because 2 is the BSC's chain ID that we use at router. And then there is an N chain ID. This is the actual chain ID of that chain you are mapping, right? So this will get 56. That is the chain ID of BSC, actual chain ID. Once you have completed all these steps, you are, you just need to provide some fee tokens that you pass to the contract so that it can pay the fees, and you are good to go. Right? Then you can try the cross-chain transactions and it will work. It takes around 2 to 3 minutes to process. Most of the time it is completed within 2 minutes, but sometimes it can take more time. And if, because of the gas or something, if it doesn't get executed, then you always have the replay functionality. So this is it from my side. If you have any questions, please ask.
Yes, thank you, Savang. So it's actually cross-chain is actually a very important topic right now. But as a beginner, right, and someone want to develop their first Dapp, what kind of Dapp the user can do when in a cross-chain domain?
Any kind actually. So if you want to create a cross-chain token, you want to create a cross-chain NFT, a cross-chain DEX, anything, you can create anything with the router crosstalk library.
And so, but one thing when people talk about cross-chain and maybe beaches, right, is security. And how can I make sure that it's secure? Because everybody, I think a lot of the audience right now are actually laymen. They really actually don't even know what is security is. So, what kind of advice you can have for them?
Sure. So definitely the audits are there. And the second thing is that we have decentralized relays. Decentralized in the sense that the relays that are running to relay your transactions do not talk to each other. And we have 67% majority vote. So, security is our topmost priority. And that is why we have decentralized relays, so that even if one relay is malicious, then the others will not be malicious. And with 2/3 majority, the issue is solved, right? So that is how we are handling the security. The contracts have also been, peer reviewed, audited. So, yeah.
So, okay, cool. And so one question from the audience: how's the life look like as a blockchain engineer? because I learned from Isabel that you guys have a really nice hacker house. It's a very kind of different culture compared to other kind of a blockchain company. Can you share that?
Yeah. So I think so it's been around 1 year since I've been blockchain developer, and I think it's great because a lot of startups are coming up in the field, and the startup culture is actually very good. So large companies do not have that kind of culture that you experience at startups. You have to do all kinds of works, and yet there is no hierarchy, right? So I think as a blockchain developer right now, you'll only be working in the startups. Most of them are startups, right? So the work culture and the work-life balance that you get in a startup, right? That is great. And as a blockchain developer, you always need to continuously learn new technologies, because each day there's some new technology that comes into the market. Actually, that is case with all kinds of development, but with blockchain development, it's a very fast-paced technology right now, because it has not matured yet, right? So I think you need to be consistent with learning process also. But yeah, you enjoy it also. So I actually enjoy it very much.
Yeah. So the last question I have is how do you think DeFi actually can help the society?
Okay. So I think centralized finance has been there for quite a long time. But with the innovations that are coming in DeFi and the powerful smart contracts that are coming, I think actually these can replace centralized transactions in the future. Because with decentralization, you give power of people power actually, right? So they have control of their money, their assets, and everything. And there will be no more disputes, right? So you have land disputes, you have tussles going on into a court. But if you have custody of your tokens, the assets and stuff, then these things will be solved, right? So I think that is one way where I see DeFi going in the future.
Okay, So actually, we have one more question. So as a developer, right, how do you utilize kind of the potential of the different chain? You know, because just like for example, right, one chain can handle one task and another chain can handle another task. You know, how do you do it? Do you think in the future people can do it in a distributed way? You know.
Actually, your voice cut off in between, so I was not able to hear the full question.
Just like what can I develop an
Can you repeat
application? Can you hear me right now? Yeah. So is it possible for me to
Yes.
develop an application that actually depend on the function of different chain, and then we can actually, and then after that we do the cross chains, you know, transfer, you know, and take advantage of different blockchains.
Right. So actually, so in this sample, I showed you a contract that you can deploy on all chains, the same contract you can deploy, right? But what you can do is you can have different contracts on different chain, but you handle the inbound and the outbound request differently there, right? So whatever you want to send, you have to write in the router send function. Whatever you are expecting to receive here, you have to write on the router sync handler, right? So you can actually have different contracts on different chain, and yet you can map these contracts and optimize according to your needs, right? So that is how you can utilize the best of all the blockchains with the router crosstalk library itself.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, thank you, Isabella. Thank you, Salon. You know, it's really wonderful sharing. You know, and the demo actually is really cool. So you know, actually, I think I will start learning how to program on a router protocol tonight. Okay, thank you very much. You know, I think we start switch to the next speakers. You know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So I actually want to introduce, actually go themselves is Kia Wolf, actually from kind of Slow Meets Limited, based in Singapore, I think. It's actually a company that started in 2018, but even before that, the team itself are actually security expert. But right now they're really focused on making the blockchain ecosystem secure. So I think Sean, can you start with introducing yourself, you know, and then you can start your presentation.
Sure. Hey, good morning, everyone, or good night, depending on where you are in the world. Yeah, so my name is Jin. I'm a team member with Slow Miss. I actually started working for the team. I actually joined the team about a year ago. Before this, I was actually in law enforcement in the cybersecurity unit. And then like in the 2017 bull run, I got into like blockchain technology, and then I got really interested in like blockchain investigation and blockchain security. So I kind of reached out to the team, and then yeah, now I'm here. So I'm just gonna share my screen, just do a little intro about blockchain security, and then like how to get started if anyone's interested. All right, can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. Yep. So Slow Miss, so a little bit about who we are. So Slow Miss is a blockchain security firm that aims to secure the future of Web3. We provide a comprehensive range of security services, including audits, post-mortem analysis, security monitoring, red teaming, and many others. We also recently launched a tracking analysis product called Mistrack to help with victims of fraud and exploit. As you guys know, like security is not just like prevented, but like also reactive measures too, in case in the event there's been like a lot of scams, exploits going on. So we actually help like teams, individuals target that too. So as Sam said earlier, we were actually built in 2018. We were like one of the largest, we were one of like the leading blockchain security firms. Our team has audited over thousands of like crypto DeFi projects, including like major exchanges, wallets, individual smart contract, Dapps, and application, as well as blockchain. So we're at the forefront of a number of major attacks and exploits, including I don't know if you guys remember, like the 51% attack on the Ethereum Classic blockchain in January 2019, and then as well as we were actually responsible for discovering the individual that was responsible for the 6 million poly network hack. So we actually found out we did a lot of research, and then we actually found the attacker IP address. We reached out to them, and then like we were able to kind of like, hey, we know who you are. You might as well return the funds to avoid any like criminal charges. All right, so let's get into it. What is blockchain security? So blockchain security is the complete risk assessment of a blockchain system or network. It uses cybersecurity frameworks, penetration testing, and safe coding practices to mitigate fraud and attacks. And then a lot of times when we talk about like blockchain security, everybody's thinking about the project side, but we also want to focus on the user side as well, because we can make it as smart as like as secure as we want, but at the end of the day, it's the user that's using the product, and we have to educate them as well. So it's important for developers to implement security features to help users navigate the dark forest of blockchain. So I'm going to go over the developer side, and then I'm going to cover some of the topics in audits, the Web2 and Web3 security, areas of vulnerability, and then some of our post-mortem analysis. So the importance of audits, as you can see, like this is, yeah, I actually just took this a couple of days ago. So just this year alone, we're looking at like 3.6 billion. This is what we know. This is like the number of attacks that we know. So it's kind of crazy how many how much has been lost already, and then every year the number just keep growing and growing and growing. So it's that's why it's like super important for us to actually focus on like for projects to get audited, because a lot of times what we're doing now is that we're kind of like people are we're almost like a project DeFi project, almost like a bank. They're depositing their funds into your projects, and then if you don't have like the right security, it's like, oh, people can find vulnerabilities to like break into a bank and just steal the funds. So audits. Many associate blockchain security with identifying vulnerabilities through security audits, but did you know that like there's different kind of audits? So we can talk about blockchain audits, smart contract audits, exchange audits, and wallet audits. Because blockchain, it's so there's so many different working gears now. You can't just focus on one aspect. It's like smart contract audit, which is the main one. But you have to talk about, all right, so what about the blockchain itself? What about the exchange? What about the wallets that people use? So there's a lot of like moving parts in it that a lot of people just don't think about. And audits are not 100%. It's weird, like essentially like new codes get deployed all the time. And then even though if like a project is safe at the time it was audited, but then like, like we're constantly updating. The blockchain industry is like one of the fastest growing industries, and there's new technology, new projects being deployed every single day. So even though if a project was first audited, you have to kind of like do like a routine checkup or something. You don't have to do it every time a contract is updated, but you might think of like a doctor's visit. You want to get like an annual checkup. And then it never hurts to get like a second opinion. We actually recommend a lot of times to get like second or third opinions, just because in case like we're people who audit, we're human too. We make mistakes. So it's good to have like a second or third opinion to check your audits, especially if we're actually like handling users' funds. And then the industry is still very new. So right now it's like we can protect from like known attacks, but what about like new vulnerabilities are being discovered each day? So there's a lot more that goes into it. Yeah, like I think like one of the few ones like re-entry attacks, like that's something like a lot of people know, but there's still a lot of new ways that like hackers can kind of like target like smart contracts, not just on the blockchain side, but I'm going to get into it too, where like we talk about like the Web2 security. because now it's not just Web3. You have to see like what kind of infrastructures they're using for Web2 as well. All right. So yeah, so smart contracts are highly complicated. And then that's just one part. So we have to think about the other moving parts. All right. So areas of vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities in blockchain, you can think about like the 51% Ethereum attack, vulnerabilities on exchange, such as like exchange hacks, vulnerabilities in smart contract hacks, and then vulnerability in wallets, like the wallet hack, like the Slope wallet hack. That was like a yeah, that was I think that was in August, where a bunch of wallets, like Slope users, their wallets were hacked, and then it turns out like one of their like service providers for the wallet, they were storing like plain text, people's private keys. So that was like something that was like overlooked. So you have to look at the whole picture. Audits are an important part of blockchain security, but it's only like part of the puzzle. Contrary to the name, blockchain security can encompass all aspects of cybersecurity as well. So you have to think about like penetration testing, risk assessments, compliance, due diligence, DevOps, monitoring. Like there's a lot involved. And as like even though we say it's blockchain security, we actually do all types of security because it all comes working together. So let's talk about like on-chain and then off-chain security. Like if you talk about front-end attacks, who are the providers? Private key storage. How is your private key stored? Who has access to them? So like Web3 backend or centralized server backend, each require different types of risk assessment. And like I said, it can get very complicated because there's different for each scenario, we have to like kind of approach it from a different view. So this is what like the current web architecture looks like. And then as you can see, there's already a lot of moving pieces. And then like each part is a vulnerability like that a hacker can kind of like exploit. So this is the Bitcoin architecture. As you can see, it's when we're talking about like a web architecture, this is being built on top of this. So that's why I'm saying like, oh, there's like a lot of areas where like a hacker can like try to exploit this. And we have to go in and make sure that you know, like it's secure at each point throughout the system. So that's just with Bitcoin. And now we're talking about like blockchain too, with like smart contracts with the Ethereum architecture. And then now there's even more moving pieces. So yeah, that's why it gets pretty complicated. All right. So Web 2 and Web 3 security. As evidenced by the previous slides, as you can see, each application is complex in its own way. Web 3 is an expansion of Web 2. Neither is more significant than the other. And then over time, it will only get more and more complex as we start building like our smart contracts now is already like crazy. If you think about, we have like DeFi, we have like NFTs, and then who knows what's going to happen in another 4 or 5 years when we just start keep building and building and building and building. All right, so since the majority like Web3 projects still rely on Web2 infrastructures, they remain vulnerable to the same attack as like Web2 projects, such as like DNS hijacking, spoofing, cache poisoning. And then these attacks are extremely dangerous for the average users because as they're like unaware that they have sent information to a malicious site or signed a contract with a malicious address to a malicious contract. All right. So areas of vulnerability. So this is like what I was talking about earlier, the seller DNS hijacking. So essentially what happened here was that like hackers got access to their front end, and then they were able to like go in and change the when they click on the actual seller link, they got like kind of they got transferred to the hacker's address, and then they were just signing malicious contracts, like that transferred their funds to the hacker's address. And then user error, private key leaks, like the this is one of the most recent incidents. Gala, which is a I guess it's the synthetic version of Gala on the Binance network. And then what they actually did is they stored the plain text private key on the and they deployed it to GitHub. So obviously somebody should have like it, that's just like a yeah um like that shouldn't happen at all. But you know, we're human, people make mistakes. All right. Downloading malware. The Ronin network was the actually one of the largest hacks to date. Essentially like the Axie Infinity, the Ronin networks was their version of the bridge, like bridge from Ethereum to their like Gain network. So then they had a lot of ETH stored in there. And essentially what happened was that one of the developers, they were applying for a job on the company computer, and they actually got fished into the I forgot the name of but it's the North Korean cyber criminal group. Yeah, it's what is the name? I forgot the name. It'll come up to me later. But essentially, like he got stuck in a phishing attack, and then he went through a bunch of interviews, and they were like, oh, okay, so we're gonna send you this file, and then that file actually contained a malicious file where a malicious malware essentially. So then his computer, his laptop had access to the central server. So even though Ronin, they have like security measures in place where it's like, I think you need like the majority of the validators before like to make any big transactions like that. At that time, they had saved the private keys to the main server, and then they forgot to remove it. So they actually got access to all of the private keys, and then they were able to transfer, I think it's like $625 million worth of ETH out. So yeah, that's what I meant. Like, oh, we can make it as secure as we want, but there's going to be the human error side, and then there's also like other. We have to look at the overall picture. Like, oh, how are you guys storing your private keys? All right, so like, why would you store all your majority of the private keys needed for transactions like this on the main server if anybody who's working for the team can get access to it? You know, forks of one another. There's so many projects out there. Even DeFi projects. Sorry. DeFi projects who are forks of one another. And then what's going to happen is that eventually they'll just keep forking, and then if the original project that you forked from, if they have a vulnerability in it, they might have fixed it. But then what about the people that forked the project afterwards? So you can see like where it starts like starting being a cascading effect, because then the hacker can just go down the line. It's like, oh, okay, so this one has the same vulnerability, this one has the same vulnerability, this one has the same vulnerability. I'll start from here, go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one. Because it's the same thing. You just got to deploy the same contract over and over and over again. And then smart contracts, bridge attacks, that is the main one right now. Bridge attacks are very complex. Essentially what's happening is like, let's say like from the Ethereum network to Solana, you're talking about two different blockchains with two programming languages. And then essentially what they do is they're locking their funds on one project, and then they're kind of like creating like a synthetic version on the other. So now you kind of like create a vault where like your assets are locked in there. And it becomes kind of like an easy target, because like why would you target an individual like me when you can go after someone that has like a larger pool? And bridges are very complex, so there's more areas of vulnerability that like a hacker can like kind of like study. And then the next one, we're talking about flash loans. Same thing. Flash loans are very complex. And one of the most recent one was like the Mango attack, where they were like, oh, this is not a, it's not a exploit. It's just a trading strategy. And flash loans are a little bit more complex because you kind of need like a traditional like blockchain security and then knowledge, and you also need like some kind of financial knowledge, because you're talking about like, all right, so what about the lending and borrowing? What about the liquidation ratio? What about the margins needed? And then market manipulation. Essentially, what they're trying to do is like they're trying to pump up the price of one collateral. So by like creating this like giant buy order, and then once they have that, they can like deposit it into a pool and then use that as collateral because they just pump up the price. So now they can kind of like withdraw it with a different asset. So a lot of times they will just like default on the original, but they were able to like withdraw majority of the funds already. And there's different ways to like approach this too. But that's why you can see like with flash loans, there's a lot of like financial knowledge that's needed too. All right, so this is actually straight from the rec leaderboard. As you can see, look at all these. These are Rono Network. That's a that was a bridge hack. Poly Network bridge hack. BNB bridge hack. Excuse me. Bitmar Nomad bridge. Beanstalk Wintermute. Majorities were bridge hacks, and I think it was over like 2 or 3 billion. I was counting. Yeah. So if anybody wants, I'll put this in the chat. All right. Post-mortem analysis. So these are the kind of things that like we looked at when we're just conducting our post-mortem analysis. So like what happened, why did it happen, who was affected, when did it happen, where did it happen, and how can we fix it? So on our slow miss medium, so you can have actually access to, we kind of like go over a lot of the exploits. So you can kind of like have a closer look at the incident itself and study it. And this is all on our slow miss medium. You can just go to medium, search slow miss. And then the winter mute exploit was actually because of the, it was a vanity address. Let me look at, all right, let's move on. But like, if anyone's interested, yeah, just go there, take a look. If there's more time at the end, I'll go in and explain it. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ones too that anybody want to look at. All right, so now it's on the user side. Like I said before, it's when we think of blockchain security, we shouldn't just think of blockchain security on the development side. We should think about it from the user side too, because at the end of the day, they're the one that's using the product. So it's better to educate them too, to not fall for like scams, phishing attacks and stuff like that. Anyways, so the main one, not your key, not your coin. You'd be surprised how many times a user kind of like contact us in our Telegram DMS and say, hey, this is what happened. They asked for my, we put in the private key and now all my funds are gone. So we like, whenever we like, when we educate the public, we want like, hey, these private keys equals access control to your funds. It's like, we just kind of like have them repeat it over and over again because that's just how important it is. Safely navigate the Web3 space. We actually created a manual called the Dark Forest Manual. It kind of like goes over some of the best security practices. Just kind of like a brief introduction into the blockchain space or the crypto space. So like we strongly recommend for like new users that's looking to get in, but like they're afraid to take that step. So kind of like just educate yourself on some things. Beware phishing attacks, best security practices, use burner wallets, don't keep all your eggs in one basket. And then I'm gonna go over details in each section too. All right. So not your keys, not your coins. Yeah, this is just a little snippet I found. So a private key is like your personal password. It's meant to be kept private. If someone else gets a hold of your private keys, then the funds you have will no longer be yours. All right. Safely navigate the Web3 space. Topics cover like it goes over how to create a wallet, how to back up your wallet, how to use your wallet, traditional privacy protection methods, fallacies in human nature, such as like scams, exploits, what to do when you get hacked, and then some common misconceptions. Like one of the most common ones right now is because people trust a project just because it says it's audited. And always reach out to the team or like go to the team like on our website. You can type in the smart contract and then you can see if we audit it because there's a lot of scams going on now where people actually like they use our logos, they use like other security companies logos and just tag it to their website. And then people to like kind of give people the false sense of security that hey, this project is like legit. But if you really think about it, like anybody can create a website. Um, Anybody can create a smart contract. So it's always important to kind of like double check, hey, verify, make sure this is actually like this is actually audited by the team, and then make sure this is yeah. Oh, and then like how to create a wallet is pretty simple, but like how do you back up your wallet? Some people are just like, oh, I keep it on my computer. I was like, all right, but what happens if your computer gets hacked? Now your wallet gets hacked, and then yeah. All right, spotting scams. So this is like one of the largest ones, or like something that actually intrigued me a lot because back in my days in law enforcement with cybersecurity, that was like a big thing on phishing and phishing emails with a lot of victims. But now, like in like blockchain, it's actually a lot worse because then if someone fish for your email address or like it's because they don't have access to your funds yet. If someone fish for like your private keys, then they have access to all your funds. So it's actually very scary, and it's actually crazy how sophisticated these attacks are getting. So I'm gonna go over some of them. Right now, the main ones on like Twitter, Discord, Telegram. There's like fake airdrops and NFTs, and then what they're doing is like they're kind of like targeting they're targeting people based on like FOMO, you know, they try to create hype around the project or it's like, hey, if you missed on this, you know, come like we're doing another one within the next 24 hours. Like, and then for to be honest, I actually fell for one of those scams in the very beginning. So like that's why I was like, oh, it was an expensive lesson, but now I know going forward. And a lot of times new users coming into the space, they don't think about stuff like that. They just like, oh, I heard like, you know, you can make quick money. So they come in and they're like, oh, look, you know, I can just follow this or I can do this and then I can get some NFTs, but they don't really understand what's going on in the background. That's like, oh, where they're asking for their permissions. So one thing you can do is like, if you've been tagged by a unknown user, it's most likely a scam. There's no reason why someone random would tag you and be like, hey, here's some free money, take it. Examine whether like another account with the same name exists. Do a quick check. A lot of the same thing on Twitter, especially Twitter right now, like anybody can create an account with the same name. Um, Especially I think like they just took it away, but like um last week or a week ago, like Elon was like saying, oh, you know, anybody can pay $8 a month and get a blue check mark. So that's kind of dangerous because then a lot of people are like, oh, okay, so I'll just pay $8 and I can pretend like I'm a legit source. Um, Another one with hacked accounts. Um, Hackers are now targeting accounts that has the blue check mark, and then what they're doing is they're changing the name to one of the I think one of the most recent ones I have. Nope. Yeah, it's changing the names of the like public figures or like a project. So then it makes it seem like, oh, this is like a legit project. So one way you can kind of like get around that is like under the check, the verified, you can see if the handle, the Twitter handle itself was something is the same as the original. And then after this, if there's enough time, I want to go on our Twitter page and just show you some of the examples going on. Phishing link. Yeah, don't click on random links, especially if they're from strangers. Um, this is something I live by. If something seems too good to be true, it's most likely a scam. And then someone's like, hey, you just won like half a Bitcoin, deposit funds into this to claim it. Yeah, it's most likely a scam. Oh, another one, fake apps, fake exchanges, wallets, website. You'd be surprised how many fake apps on the iOS store. It's a lot less, but on like Android devices, because anybody can create an app. Exchanges, lots of fake exchanges, lots and lots of fake wallets. Same thing with websites. Anybody can create websites and just and send it out there. And then support team imposters, we get a lot of those too. Like if you post something on like any of the channels, like they have bots that just look for some type of wording, and like the bot will usually reach out to you under the name of like a fake support team. So always make sure like you visit official sources, because yeah. All right. Let's go to some only download from official sources. Never ever click on any ads, because anytime we've seen a lot of projects that a lot of like scammers that pay ads to be on Google, pretending to be like other teams. They're doing a better job now. But yeah, there's still some projects where it's like I think they made it so like you can't promote crypto related projects on Google Ads anymore. But some things usually slip through. And then use security tools, like Wallet Guard, Scam Sniffer. Wallet Guard is an extension. Essentially, what happens is like, so I have it here actually. If I go to like a new site or like a fake site, it will tell me, hey, it's like this site has been flagged, or this is a brand new site. Whereas like if you're going to Uniswap and like Uniswap been around for a long time, so then like the um hackers will probably like scammers will probably use something like Uniswap, uniswaps.com or something, or Uniswap XYZ, and then like it'll kind of like alert you, hey, are you sure you want to go here? This is a scam. All right, so let me go to the next page. Phishing attacks, and these are getting so crazy that I'm like, um, I'm just shocked by like how easy, like the way that like hackers think. So essentially, they use like social engineering to trick users into making this just clicking on links, because we know like all it takes is really 2 clicks or even less, maybe even 1 click, um, to like download malware. So there's spoofing. It's a fake address disguised to look like a real one, and I'll show you later on our Twitter too. Downloading malware like the fake job posting from the Ronin hack, fake game downloads, the red link stealer. This is one of the recent ones. Essentially, like uh, scammers will pretend like, hey, this is our new game. You know, this is the beta version. Can you test it out? And then we'll pay you like $500 for it. So the first thing that's becoming is like, all right, why are they asking for your advice? That's why it goes back to like, all right, so like if it's too good to be true, it usually is. And then what happens is that like they'll send you the link, and then you download it, and then like it has the red link dealer, the malware. Essentially, it's like a keylog. Fake airdrops, the Uniswap phishing attack. Similar address airdrops. I think I have like 8. So Leah, let's go through this. Let's see how it works. So the Uniswap phishing attack, what happened was that somebody created like an address and named it. If you see closely right here, it says Uniswap LP. So they kind of like send it out to a bunch of people, and people who actually had the Uniswap LP, when they clicked on that, when they went to they see something in their wallet, and then on Etherscan, it's disguised to make it look like it's from the original Uniswap. So they're thinking that, hey, we just got an airdrop from Uniswap. So they actually click on the link within it that was provided on Etherscan. And then so when they click here to claim, what they actually did was they ended up transferring all their liquidity out the Uniswap V3 NFT liquidity pool to the scammer. So this is one of like the big ones. I forgot how much was like lost, but it was a lot. Like originally there was like people thought it was like attack on the Uniswap liquidity pool. I mean on the Uniswap smart contract itself, but it turns out it was just like a very, very successful phishing campaign. Yeah, so almost like yeah. At first we thought it was only like 4,300 ETH, but it turns out it was like over 7,500 ETH. So it was, and this was when ETH was like 22 or 3,000. So that was a lot of money that was like stolen. Similar address airdrops. That's another one. For this one, what they do is hackers will send like 0.1 UST or 0.001 UST to a bunch of like large addresses, and then what they do is they kind of like create the here. So they kind of like, if you see like this address ends in like Eagle 89, like I did this before too, where it's like you go to your previous transactions and you copy some of the old address. And now, if you don't actually look at it closely, you can see this also ends in like yeah, this also ends in the same one, but like it was made that way to trick you into thinking these are your addresses, when essentially like you have to look at the whole transaction, the whole yeah, yep, it's TXTW. So like this is the attacker's address, this is the actual user's address. So like at first glance, even now I'm like, oh look, they look exactly the same. So you end up copying the wrong address and kind of like end up sending your funds there. So, and you can see there's a reason why they target accounts with like large amounts of like high frequency transactions, like 9,900, and then they just send you a little bit just so it shows up in your previous transactions. All right, some security tips for users. Always use burner wallets, especially when interacting with new sites. It's as simple as going to like MetaMask and then clicking new wallet. It's like that simple. Having multiple wallets, like you have a cold versus hot wallet, employ different wallets for different use cases, like one that's like that holds some majority of your funds, and then you like send it out to a new wallet that's just for minting. This is just for swapping with new tokens. So that's another way where it's like, all right, if one wallet is compromised, you can go back and check like how is this compromised? If this is the only wallet affected, so what sites did I like, what applications did I connect to with this wallet? Or it's like if all your wallets got compromised at once, did you just download malware? Things like that. Don't keep all your funds in one place. It's the same thing. You wouldn't keep like all your money in one place. Like, why would you keep? It's the same thing with crypto. If something seems too good to be true, it's most likely is. There's no. It's. I know there's like airdrops that people hear about, but like you have to do certain things to qualify for it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like don't risk it. Don't blindly sign transactions. Learn to read them. This was actually another phishing attack on the MetaMask. I'll show you later too. So essentially what happened was like, this is the ETH sign is one of the transactions in MetaMask where it's like, you're actually signing a blank check. And when scammers do what usually MetaMask does is like, they'll create kind of like some kind of writing in red. That way user will know it's like, hey, this is a scam, like, you know, you don't want to click it. And then what happens next is that most likely users will click the cancel button, but automatically something else will pop up where it asks you, it's like, oh, are you sure? Do you want to confirm? And then most users who don't read it, it's actually saying it's actually like a phishing attack, a phishing attack where they try to have you click the confirm button next, and that gives them access to your NFTs. So yeah, it's like very important to read the type of transactions you're signing. And like I said, you can go to MetaMask and it shows you like what the different functions of each transaction is. Don't trust, always verify. Don't believe everything you hear. Ask. Our DM is always open. Like I said, a lot of users like DM was asking, hey, is this project you audited? They have your logo. I was like, no, this is a scam. Don't trust it. Double check your destination addresses. The nice thing and the scary thing in blockchain is once it's out there, it's out there. Don't use 2FA, SMS 2FA. SIM cards can be easily swapped. Don't click on links. Don't click on links sent to your email address unless you're expecting something. A lot of times scammers, once they get access to your email, they'll like send you like phishing links. More importantly, just use common sense. Like when you created a MetaMask wallet, you didn't give them your email address. So why are you getting an email from MetaMask saying like, hey, you gotta like sign up, or you gotta like verify yourself. Some on-chain investigations. So you can use Etherscan, BSC scan, portfolio trackers. You can use Nansen Portfolio, DBank, blockchain analytics, Nansen NFT scan, and then AML analysis. We have our mistrack, and we actually have like we created this like doing analytics to go along with a mistrack to kind of like help demix tornado cash withdrawals. How to get started. So on the development side, we have some resources, like if you want to learn how to build smart contracts, Learn Web3 is a great one. SlowMit's GitHub, we have all our public audits, some security tips, and then you can do like bug penalties with Immunify. Also go network. Go to events, DMs, meetup. Like I said, I got this job because I just like DM the company. On the user side resources, we have our Dark Forest Handbook. Learn the basics of blockchain technology, SlowMit's Twitter, stay up to date on the latest scams, exploits, hacks, and security practices. Our mistrack builder, learn how to like conduct on-chain investigations. All right, and that's it. I think I just made it in time. Sorry about that.
Hey, thank you, James. Yeah, just maybe 1 minute for one quick question from the audience. So, do you have a checklist on what developers should look at when they write a smart contract?
Yeah, so that's actually on our GitHub too. So like I said, all our resources on our GitHub. So we even have a lot of the information, what some of the vulnerabilities we found and how to fix them on our GitHub too. And then I'll put the link in here in the chat, so it's easier to get access to.
Yeah, and we will forward to the Telegram group. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
No, it's wonderful.
I went over.
Yeah, I've learned a lot. So okay, you can log off, and then we can bring in Leo.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yeah, have you too. I think our next speaker, Leo, can turn on the camera and the voice. But I just want to make a quick introduction. So Leo actually is a serial entrepreneur. So right now he's actually the founder and CEO of Oak Protocol. He's actually creating an infrastructure for actually regular people, not even a programmer, to create dynamic NFT. Of course, a lot of people know about NFT, but what is actually dynamic NFT, right? But before that, actually, he also one of the founder of Vulcaning, who actually really like interesting kind of blockchain infrastructure startup, So Leo had been a programmer all his life, He actually in all the a co-founder in all the different kind of blockchain event. So I think it would be interesting talk, but I think probably have certain noise on this side, but I think you're taking care of it. Hey, so Leo, I think the stage is for you. So, I think you can share your screen, load up your presentation, and get going.
Cool, awesome. Thanks a lot for that introduction. And thanks a lot to everyone here taking the time to learn about kind of dynamic NFTs. So today I have a brief presentation that is going to start kind of at an introductory level, talk about like dynamic NFTs, and then go a little bit also more into the tech. I'm trying to share my screen. How do I do this? Share this. Is that sharing my screen properly right now?
Yes, we can share the whole screen right now, but you can go to slideshow. So.
Okay, and mine's slideshow mode, right?
Yes, now it's perfect.
All right, cool. So today I'm going to be talking about like a simple game mechanic that we've developed at Owl Protocol, which is NFT attachment, which is one of the different mechanics that are possible with dynamic NFTs. And there's tons of applications. We talk a lot about games because games are probably the easiest way to integrate these, where you can make the analogy of a character with different attachments. It could have a sword or different types of clothing. But there's also applications in like retail, brands, and we're going to go a bit more into depth later on. So just to get started, right? This is going to be, like I said, very introductory. So like, what is an NFT, right? And what does that mean on chain? So NFTs, fundamentally, they're just like mapping unique identifiers from addresses to track ownership to the actual data, right? And that could be an image, it could be tickets, it could be really any type of good. And the difference with a regular ERC20 token is that these NFTs are non-fungible, right? Like in the name. And the reason they're non-fungible is because each piece of data is unique. So you can't add them up, right? Unlike a token, if I have 5 tokens and you have 1 token, if you send me your 1 token, now we're 6, right? So that's kind of fungibility because you can split into infinite amount of parts. You can't do that with the 721s. And NFTs, of course, are permission. So you have like rules about like who owns the data. And what you see on the screen, right, when you go on OpenSea is called metadata. And metadata provides a kind of description of what the asset is. And the most common use case, of course, is storing an image in the form of it could be PNG link, right? It's just a URL essentially. And that's what you see with your Bored Ape, for example. And each token ID has a token URI, which points to the link that gives you the data here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but under metadata here, right, there's the name. This is the kind of demo NFT from OpenSea. And every, the metadata of NFT should fit the standard NFT metadata standard that was promoted by kind of a couple, the original ERC, but also OpenSea. So you see this kind of JSON format with the image, but also traits and attributes. So everyone knows about NFTs, right? So this was really maybe an extra slide for kind of repeat for most people. But we like at Owl Protocol dynamic NFTs, and the reason for that is we see a shift in the market from NFTs as just like purely speculatory art, but rather a way to track user data, whether it's customer data, in-game data, assets, and people are changed, right? People are like humans are living beings, and the same way your data is a living being. So dynamic NFTs are NFTs that have some form of change associated to them, right? So that means that data can be updated either by the user, by on-chain actions, or by off-chain actions. And this is very wide spectrum, right? So this could mean an NFT that's connected to the internet, right, through something like Chainlink. So our other company, VulcanLink, is a Chainlink node operator. So you could have an NFT that changes based on weather data, based on sports data. These are kind of popular use cases. You can also have NFTs that have different traits that change, that have hidden traits, or that have visual cues as well that can change over time, right? And that is just high level, right? But always keep in mind, despite the data being, I often get this question. I thought NFTs were about like immutability, right, and blockchain. Well, when we talk about living data, it doesn't mean that like you can write whatever you want, right? It's still within a certain set of rules, right? That the developer originally publishes, and those rules are permanent, right? So, for example, you can use, this is just a small graphic, but you could use on-chain and off-chain data. So if you follow from 1 to 5, essentially you can have a user make a request to update data, and they make the request to the smart contract, and that can go to like a off-chain oracle, right? So a Chainlink oracle that will make a request and be like, say you have like a sports NFT and the character tracks the performance of the player in game. While the oracle will give you, real world data. It's similar to how a lot of DeFi protocols used Chainlink today for price feeds. Chainlink can be used for a lot of different types of data. And of course, this doesn't have to be Chainlink, it could be another oracle protocol as well. That's the one I'm the most familiar with. And then you can also have it be based on blockchain data, right? So you could have something where the user has to own a certain amount of tokens or has to burn an NFT. Really, this is just a high level overview. So, all right, so this is very complicated and high level, but go like a very abstract description I've given you, but concretely what already exists using these kind of ideas. And we can go all the way back to CryptoKitties, which is kind of the original NFT in many ways. Like CryptoKitties was one of the first NFTs in the market, and CryptoKitties created a breeding algorithm, right? So they had a genetic algorithm that was inspired by just human biology, right? So same idea here, living data, and you could breed the cats to create NFTs. Now, what was really novel about this is that the data was actually stored on chain, right? So even though the image is not on the blockchain because that would be too expensive, the encoding of that data, right? What eyes does your cat have? What color is its skin? How big are the eyes? What's the pattern of the skin? All that data is encoded, and then you can build a smart contract on top that does breeding, right? So this is really basic. And then based on that, you can have auctions, different rarity levels, but none of that is controlled by the developer, right? The developer sets the breeding rules, but then the user has to go and interact. So this is why we're so excited about dynamic NFTs. It's because it pushes more for utility and interaction, and in many ways makes this more scalable for users that are not accustomed to just like speculating on NFTs, but rather want to interact with something, right? That's what we do in the regular Web2 space. So another similar example is Aavegotchi. Aavegotchi uses Chainlink VRF for randomness and doing raffles. So this same idea, right? There's this idea of randomness. And but unlike CryptoKitties, which uses like genetic breeding, they use kind of random number provable on-chain random number generator. Now, one thing you'll notice here is each of these projects have like different implementation, right? So there is no standard for dynamic NFTs today. What we see is there's the asset, the ERC 721, that is standard, right? Every wallet can support NFTs, every marketplace can support NFTs, but there is no standard for like the rules about these different mechanics. So, all right, so, I've given you this description about dynamic NFTs. So how can we go more into trying to find different types of mechanics, right? So some of our mechanics that we've pioneered is the idea of crafting. So which is where you can have different inputs, and these can be ERC 20, ERC 721, ERC 1155. So these are different standards for tokens, ERC 20, NFTs, ERC 721, and ERC 1155, I guess, depends what you want to call it, because it's kind of partially an NFT and partially a token. But essentially, crafting is very simple, right? You have a bunch of inputs. For example, here on the right-hand side with the sword, you put the handle, the mantle, and the steel, and you can mint a sword, right? So that's very basic. In many ways, it's kind of like a trading contract, right? Kind of like Uniswap, but unlike swapping two assets, you can swap N inputs and to M outputs. So crafting is very simple. Breeding is a bit more complicated, but the idea here is that you're storing data about NFTs on chain, right? Using that encoding that CryptoKitties is using, and then using that to generate new NFTs. And then equipment/attachments is this idea of kind of composable NFTs that can be attached to other ones and are now kind of bounded together, and that then also optionally be detached, right? So, a lot of the concepts here we illustrate are with gaming, but there's also applications with like brands. For example, you can imagine Nike creating a crafting contract that says you have to burn the Adidas NFT to mint the Nike NFT, right? So it can be competitive mechanics, or you can also have a lot of NFTs today want to do, hey, if you own my original collection, you can mint my secondary collection for free, Or you could, but with crafting, you could make it a bit more interesting where you could do, hey, you don't get it for free, but you get it at a discount, right? So these types of things are very popular, but we need to build technical standards around it. So that's why we have our also open source implementations of these ideas. And we're also soon going to be releasing, potential ERCs to also make this even more, continue down the standards track. So here we have a small workshop idea that we have, like quick demo of how our some of our contracts work. So today I mentioned attachable NFTs. So the idea here is that we're going to change the NFT's attributes using another NFT. Right? So here we have like a owl, crypto owl that we've designed, and all the data here is encoded, right? And then you have a rare wing attribute, right? That is a separate NFT, and that can be attached to the parent NFT. And when that happens, the NFT changes its attributes, and the ownership of the NFT, the rare NFT, is transferred to the parent owl, right? So now you no longer own the attachment. The attachment is owned by the NFT. So this enables things where you can have kind of bundles of NFTs being traded, and then also interoperability between games, right? Because these NFTs, these two collections, the wing and the character, don't necessarily have to be from the same collection, right? I could launch a stack of NFTs that are based around different attachments, items in games, and then another game could integrate those, for example. So, all right, so the goal here is to achieve these features, right? Attaching, detaching NFT, but not using a centralized endpoint, right? So because there's probably a lot of crypto games today that will do this where hey, it's on chain, but actually there's nothing on chain, right? It's just numbers and URLs, and then they just change everything off on their centralized server. And at that point, it's kind of meaningless. You can just use a regular database. So what we're doing here is using immutable data, right? So, and using rules that are immutable. And the way we achieve this is we have the original attachment NFT and the base NFT be published on IPFS, on a decentralized network, and that can be also stored with different incentive mechanisms like Arweave, and those layers then get composed generatively. So if you do the attachment, you can automatically on the client side either, so on your browser, generate the new image and the new metadata, or you could also do it through kind of sort of middleware. So that is kind of introducing a little bit of centralization, but it's middleware that just encodes and decodes the data, right? So it's not storing the data. The data is always stored on a decentralized network. So, so our goal here, so this is a bit sharing our vision. Our goal with our protocol, like I said, is creating standards around these mechanics, right? And then making the developer experience even better by building basic no-code solutions where you can configure rules about crafting, and then also have a user-facing UX where the crafting can occur. So this is small, demos about our UX, where users can create, developers can create traits and then upload the layers, right? Because like we said, when you go here, when you upload layers, these get propagated on a decentralized network. And so you just have to say, this is how this gets attached. So I believe, give me a sec. I believe I have a video here. Yeah, so okay, so going for, let me keep presenting actually. A couple more slides. So when the user attaches, right, an NFT, they can see the rendering and then they can confirm on chain. So I want to go towards first how it works, and then I'll show you the video. So the DNA, right, the DNA standard, this is getting a bit technical for the participants of the hackathon, but essentially the DNA is just encoding of the data, right, in binary form. So it's very compact and avoids, so we don't store a full image, but you could have different layers, and each layer could be a different number. And based on that, we can then render the image for the client. And the token URI, like I said, the URL endpoint, usually it's just a fixed endpoint plus the token ID. Here instead is dynamically generated using the DNA of the NFT, right? And so the DNA of the NFT can change over time based on attachments. And then for our on-chain DNA, you can either render it client side, right, with our SDK, or, and that is just essentially decoding the data, or you can also have an API. So we do have an API that serves as middleware, and the purpose of that is to work with existing marketplaces, right? Things like OpenSea. But again, that's just encoding, decoding the data. Everything is stored on IPFS. So we'll walk through this code really very briefly for more experienced hackers. But essentially, this is our DNA logic, right? This that we're trying to standardize essentially, because things like, for example, CryptoKitties or Axie Infinity or Aavegotchi, they're all using their own method. And it's not really great if everyone's using different standards. And so the main idea of the DNA function is that each NFT, the NFT can have its own DNA, the inherent DNA here that you can see at the bottom. And it can also have child DNAs, right, which are the attachments. And so the child DNA is a concatenation. You combine the DNA of the character with the DNA of any NFTs that are attached to that character, right? It can be like swords, attachments, or it could be like a loyalty program, or like if you get a special NFT, you get a bonus, and then you can attach that to your customer profile, get the actual benefits. But we're returning the DNA of the NFT in just one big encoding, and then the user will decode that data with our SDK. So I'm going to skip through this, but if you have more in-depth questions about how this works, I'll be able to answer at the end. But essentially, you call the token URI just like a regular NFT, right? So this is why we're trying to keep backwards compatibility with existing standards. So it still works with the regular ERC 721, et cetera. And then you get the URL, and then with the URI, you get the DNA, and then you decode the DNA to generate the image. So, okay, now going into more visuals. The idea here is that, like we mentioned, we want compatibility with existing marketplaces. So, this is the Crypto Owl kind of proof of concept idea, but you'll see it has all these traits, right? The color, the eyes, so all this is encoded on chain. So now you have an NFT where I can't, as a developer, I can just change the images, right? Because there's a lot of NFTs like that that are really centralized. With our solution, everything is encoded on chain, but very efficiently, because we don't store the actual image, right? Like, keep in mind, we upload the layers, the actual images, on a decentralized storage network, so IPFS, and then on chain, on the Ethereum or Polygon or whatever blockchain you're using, we store pointers to that data. So we say like use image layer 1, image layer 0, image layer 2, and use this color. So this is how it ends up rendering on something like OpenSea, where you have, it works like a regular NFT, but now you can have, developers can build a lot of different rules, right? It doesn't have to be our attachment mechanic. Our attachment mechanic is just one idea, but you could have breeding with this. You can have, solutions where you have like randomized colors, and have benefits like staking that depends on certain attributes. Any of this is really open to the developer to decide, because all that data is encoded on chain. So here I have a video. Yeah, so I want to quick sprint through this video before we go to questions. But essentially, this is just a quick demo of our on-chain, showing our on-chain NFT. So this is running on Polygon network, I believe. Right, so here we have like 2 NFTs, right? And we're trying to do this to showcase that this works on existing marketplaces, right? So we have this DNA encoding with the NFT, and all the properties are encoded. And then, okay, so this is our smart contract.
How long is the video? I think it paid.
Oh, it's just a minute. It's just a minute.
Yeah,
we're just sending. Yeah, so I'm just showing the transaction here, and then I want to show the end state here at the end, right? The video, the attachment has been made, right? So this is now compatible with existing marketplaces. So this is this is just to showcase like that it is working. So I think I'll skip this. Well, actually, this is more conceptual on, once we're done with the integration with our UI, users will be able to craft, with the UX. And the goal here, like I said, is we're not launching our own NFT collection, right? But rather building tools for developers. So we've released our smart contracts. If you want to build your own UI, you're completely free to do so. And but with our tools, you already get prefab, essentially basic UI, and you can use our components to kind of brand them and stuff like that. So, all right, moving away from the more technicals, what's the kind of business advantage for this, right? And today, a big thing in the NFT space has been royalty fees. This has been a kind of ongoing war between creators and marketplaces that, of course, there's competitive forces. And the reality is you cannot enforce on-chain royalties. It is not possible due to the technical limitations of not being able to differentiate a transfer, right, from my wallet to like my friend's wallet or my own other wallet between a sale. You can't differentiate the two. And so it's literally impossible. OpenSea is trying to find a way to get around that. That will fail because there are technical limitations to their implementation. So if we can't do sale and trading fees, right, what can we do? And in my view, the next best option is to create utility fees, right? And in my view, those are much more sustainable in the long term. What does that translate to in the real world? It looks like something similar to what we currently have with loyalty programs, right? Like Starbucks card, your airline, where you have all these cashback programs, right? Where you might spend some money at a store and then get cash back, and then American Express will get a cut of that. That is somewhere one thing we're exploring, where we believe if a lot of developers, whether it's game developers with brands, events, launch NFTs, and then they target other NFT communities for like a crafting, right? So say I want to launch a party and I say like, oh, if you own a Bored Ape, you get to mint a ticket and you have to pay like $10. You can have a commission go to a royalty fee, go to Bored Ape, right? And now the question is like, oh, how is that different from a sale? Because now you can have the royalty encoded in the crafting contract, right? Now it's not perfect, like someone could create a crafting contract but there's no commission. But the idea here is if we have businesses collaborating on different promotional materials, building partnerships and stuff like that, we can build more long-term sustainable fees. And they're also not based around like large trading volumes, right? Because commissions are very market sensitive, right? If trading is happening at very low volumes, like $10 instead of 100,000, you generate fewer commissions. Here, you're charging more for utility, right? So that's the main idea here. We're charging for utility, and that can be much more sustainable in the long term. And then once you introduce more mechanics, right, with crafting, equipment, different parts, and the idea of collecting sets, right? That's one thing, right? A lot of NFTs right now are like unique, but here with something like crafting or equipment, you might have to collect like 4 out of 5 NFTs, right, to get a set and unlock something new. It creates a lot of mechanisms when users want to trade between each other, because I have your last NFT that you need for the set, and you have the last NFT for my set. We're going to be much more willing to trade, as opposed to right now when you're trading, it's much more based on like, how much is this worth, which is like sometimes not, we're not going to come to agreement. So we can get higher volume through that as well. All right, so this is just an overview. So, if you're a developer, this is just some advice about how we've developed our smart contracts and how you should go about thinking about this. First of all, you don't want to use too big smart contracts, right? Both for technical limitations, because you're going to hit the code size limit, but also for security, right? This is why, for example, all of our mechanics like crafting, breeding, loot boxes, attachments, all of these are not implemented in the core NFT contract, right? These are implemented as kind of separate modules that run in the periphery, and they are optional. And then when you're launching, you're just launching a regular NFT essentially. And then we use different permissions between the contracts to give that read or write access. But the main idea here is you want to create separate modules. And then we also use a lot of standards, right? Because again, we're all super big on standards. So we use existing standards, for example. One notable one is 4907 for like rentable NFTs. So that's an optional standard you can add to enable NFT renting. Also, the registry contract is very important to like index, right? So that people can find these contracts. Like if I own an NFT, I want to find all of the crafting contracts that support that NFT. And so the registry makes built-in indexing possible without having to use something like the graph, right? The graph is cool, but it's sometimes it can be a bit overkill for certain use cases. So our protocol, this is us. I've already alluded to it a little bit. So we're also Vulcan Link as a separate brand. That's our we're Chainlink node operator based here in Dubai Internet City. And we support like over 10 blockchains, and we're soon going to be launching our protocol on top of our existing nodes, where you'll be able to launch these simple dynamic NFTs but we've also already released on our GitHub, which I posted on one of the previous slides, github.com our protocol, where you can see our existing smart contracts and launch them. These are going to go undergo a couple audits with the reputable auditors, and so we're finalizing that. Yeah, that's what we do. So we're very integrated. And right now we're also working with SDKs and different solutions to make it easier to integrate these NFTs more in games or rendering engines to have more in-depth experiences. Right now we're mostly focused on web, but that's where we want to go. And then we're building additional integrations with Chainlink to enable, like I said, randomized VRF and then cross-chain solutions as well. And then, yeah, these are some of our other features like gasless transactions. We're working on proof of location. And then, I mean, you can scan this QR code, I guess, if you're in your apartment, if you have your phone, but you can also go on our website to register for our kind of developer evangelist mailing list, where we're giving access to early beta testers. Cool. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope this wasn't too long. I know we have 30 or 40 minutes booked up, so I think I'll open up to questions.
Yes, hey, thank you, Leo. Very actually educational presentation. So the first question I got is, so you talk about GameFi and also the NFT kind of connection. Beside that, right, what other depth you think people can develop with your protocol? Do you think even DeFi or something can do that? Can you see that?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different applications. So we start with gaming because it's the one that is most conducive to integrating with our solutions right now, because you don't have to build much on top to get support right now. There's applications, first of all, in the real world, where fundamentally, dynamic NFTs are about tracking more data on chain and building incentive mechanisms on top, right, in a decentralized way. So you can build, for example, loyalty programs, right, where a user gets POAP. So POAP is proof of attendance and participation by going to certain events, right? So that is already built. But that is a different solution for real world collection. So they collect these POAPs. The problem is POAPs are kind of worthless right now. It's like, what do you do with them? You just use them as a badge. But if you have a user that's very attending a lot, right? They can maybe, if they get 10 POAPs, they can mint a new oh, you're like a top, top fan of the events. So you prove that you've attended, and now you can combine them to mint a new NFT, and that could be a soul-bound NFT, for example, something like that. But again, these are ideas that people have, but with these dynamic mechanisms, anyone can integrate the POAP, right? So multiple people can say, oh, if you burn your POAP, I'll give you something else. So it could be brands that say oh, if you go to these events, we'll give you something for free. Or it could be something like a DAO that says oh, you have to attend these 10 events, right? Get 10 POAPs, and then if you mint 10 POAPs, you get to mint a pass that gives you access to the DAO. And then in terms of, you mentioned GameFi, DeFi, I think as we have more data, it creates more opportunities for building financial products on top, right? This could mean, for example, reputation, right? I gave you the POAP idea. Well, if you have a POAP that proves, you've attended these events, and then you have these NFTs that prove certain amounts of data, maybe now you can start doing things like more non-collateralized loans, right? Theoretically, if you have an NFT that proves your identity and then proves a credit score, proves past activity, that is very interesting. I think that is the big next step that DeFi has to take if it wants to have real world applications, is to do non-collateralized loans, because anything in the real world, right, is if you're taking a consumer loan or something like that, sometimes you don't have collateral to post, or at least the collateral you have isn't digital, right? So maybe you have an NFT that tracks your housing value, and that can be used in DeFi for as collateral. That would be very interesting too.
So actually, because I think NFT gonna have even more and more application potentially. What I actually think they are more useful than tokens, because as you said, even I can use the NFT to track the housing prices, or even become a concert ticket, although kind of day-to-day usage rather than just a currency, right? So it's how do people can get the information of the NFT, so pricing, or to investigate where actually the kind of product market fit, for getting the right product market fit for NFTs. So.
It's a great question. I think if you're doing you want to test product market fit, you probably want to start small. So you want to maybe do a proof of concept with like a few NFTs, and it doesn't have to be fully decentralized necessarily from day one, right? There are projects that are doing things with like NFT ticketing, stuff like that, where they do the more hacky solutions of like, hey, you have an NFT, and then it points to like a centralized endpoint. And I think that's good to get started with. Then you got to, the reason we're building our protocol is we want that data to be on chain, right? Because then a smart contract can read that data. So now I can build a derivatives product, for example, that like buys tickets or some stuff like that. Yeah, so getting started like that.
Yeah, so maybe you tell us a bit more the kind of the NFT information protocol you're building, as a last question.
Yeah. So I guess right now we're very focused on developer tools, making it easy to launch this, because I went through a couple slides that were very technical, and there's even more stuff that we're developing. So abstracting that away from developers, where now you just have to think like, hey, these are the NFTs I'm inputting, these are the NFTs that I'm outputting. That makes it much simpler to get adoption, because there's a lot of standards, right? And yet, like there's ERC, it's like 5,000 ERCs maybe. There's only like 10 of them that have actual adoption, right? Like ERC 27, 21. So if you want adoption, you got to make it easier. So that's what we're building. We're coming out with docs. Other than that, I think there's like, if you want other information that's not from us, there's games that are launching NFTs. And I would encourage people to look at these existing projects I mentioned, right? Axie Infinity, CryptoKitties, Avagachi, and looking at like, what are some of their ideas, right? And trying to figure out like, what are some common ideas that people have used, what has worked before, what hasn't. Yeah, and then if you're not technical, I would look into more the Web2 space, and how are like people building partnerships today with like user data, right? Taking things like Facebook marketing, stuff like that. How do you build that for the Web3 space using NFTs? Or because NFTs, like the way we look at NFTs is very different from like the average collector. We look at NFTs as just like pieces of data, essentially. Like you have an address and then you're storing a piece of data, and that could be like an asset, but it can be also some user data that eventually feeds into something else.
So wonderful. Well, I think that's a good ending for it, because those are really good advice for like beginning hacker, how to look at things and how to grow from there. So yeah. Thank you.
You can find. Thank you. You can find us on. By the way, you can find us on Instagram or LinkedIn and stuff like that. And feel free to send me a Telegram if you have any questions. I'm sure Sam can share it with the hackers and stuff like that. And our GitHub is also released. Cool. All right. Thanks,
we'll put all the information in our website too, in the Telegram group.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Actually, everybody to sit through the 4 really good educational section today. So I think for all the information for all those 4 projects, I think we will follow up and put in the Telegram group, so you can a lot of reference for you to do when you're starting your project. So and then don't forget, actually next Saturday we have one last day. Then the main theme of that day we talk about ecosystem. Just like it doesn't matter where you are actually in the region, in the actual Middle East, Turkey or Africa region, we can tell you actually how each region have their own ecosystem. So as a programmer and hacker, so where can you connect with your ecosystem in your local area? And then beside that, definitely try to join our hackathon, because not just as a programming exercise or learn programming, it's about kind of how to form a team, like building up your thing about the project, work with different expertise, and to potentially build the next $9 billion startup. And from Alibaba and the organizer, we provide a lot of resources for you too, as you said, right? We already create a lot of technical workshop for you, and then we also will give you a lot of developer resources. And then we also potentially give you mentorship, just like if you really sign up to form your team and doing your project, we actually will have a mentor to help you. And from there, right, because by joining the project, you can actually meet other fellow developer, creator, virtually, potentially and found your own team. And then eventually that potentially can become a lifetime relationship. So hang in there, try to sign up, think about what kind of project we do, and then come back next week, and then we have more section for you. So I think that actually the end for today. Okay, bye-bye. I'll see you next week.